very much. I'm very conscious of the fact that I'm standing between you and your lunch now this minute, so I will be brief. My background actually was in FOSS before, and I had responsibility for employment services in FOSS. And as you know, employment services was hived off to the Department of Social Protection at the time. That was actually in 2012, and at the time we were in the middle of a recession, and therefore it necessitated an awful lot of changes to the way that employment services was delivered. So that whole model that FOSS had was basically kind of suspended at that time. New terms were phrased like activation and case officers. We were no longer employment service officers. And intro was introduced, and a whole raft of new systems were created to help basically the department manage the whole activation space. Because at that time we had vast numbers of people coming through the doors, as you can imagine. The possibility of exit score was developed. That was to dictate the pattern of engagement that the department had with its customers, and depending on where you fell in that score, you either got, intensive engagement with a case officer, or basically you were told, off you go, 6 months, we'll see you. If you're still on the live register, then we'll have a chat. So at that time as well, the role of the local employment services was also impacted, because we needed all hands on deck. We had to get everybody engaged in that same process. And then of course we had the introduction of JobPath. I'll say no more about that one. So unfortunately then you could say that these systems are now still in place, and lots of ways they drive the engagement that the department has with its customers still. So much so that when I started looking at, where does RPL fit in to our services, I could see, okay, we're going to have some difficulties with this. So while we do collect an awful lot of data about our customers, the systems themselves that we use don't necessarily lend themselves to collecting the type of data that could be very valuable as evidence for RPL. Basically, you could say that, if it's not on the computer, then we can't record it. And this is the type of system that the case officers have to operate. We had a lot of very experienced FOSS employment service officers who had been educated in that whole guidance model, but an awful lot of them have either retired or moved into new roles. We've moved people from ex-HSE community welfare roles or ex-Department of Social Protection roles into the activation space. So they had to learn a system, but they didn't necessarily provide the whole guidance model or education. There's a little bit of a swing around on that at the moment, in that the department has teamed up with NCI, and they are now doing what started out as a level, funny enough, a level 8 certificate for case officers. That bar was set a bit too high, so they've dropped it down now to a level 6. But I have had a look at it, and there's a very brief mention of RPL. It certainly isn't something that our officers are being informed about. It comes back to the very, very first part of today, where we talked about educating our people. Do they have the knowledge about RPL? Now, you could take a very pragmatic approach and say, well, we should just point people to RPL practitioners or RPL to just get their previous experience validated. But I think that would be a wasted opportunity, because, as I said, we are collecting a lot of data. And while the systems, the case officers mightn't be, appropriate at the moment, that doesn't mean to say that they couldn't be developed. But then you have other parts of the department, like, say, for example, the individual learning plan that every community employment participant, fills out and goes through when they're going through their CE scheme. That's a much more flexible system. There's an opportunity where you could actually gather that information and record it. So look, as I said, I won't keep you from your lunch. And I'm going to leave it at that and just say that we definitely want to be at the table with everybody else. Thank you very much.